So the other movie I saw on Saturday was Transporter Refueled. And surprisingly, I kind of enjoyed it. So if you've seen my review of Agent 47, you'll know that between Agent 47 and the Transporter Refueled, I wasn't looking forward to either of those two movies, but I was looking a little bit more forward towards Agent 47 because it looked like a better film. Yet somehow when I got out of the Transporter Refueled, I was kind of glad I saw it. It was really weird. So as you well know, the Transporter Refueled is a reboot of the Transporter franchise, but instead of Jason Statham as the Transporter, instead we have the guy who used to be in Game of Thrones who quit in order to do this film. And in this reboot, you've got this crime lord who is Russian. No, he's not really Russian. He has a Russian henchman, but I think he might be Romanian or something. I don't know what he is. Anyway, he runs this prostitution rink, or his escorts. And after 15 years of making a name for himself, 4 of his prostitutes had enough of it, and they want to get out, and they want to steal his money and ruin his entire business. They've come up with a completely convoluted, really complex, yet somehow smart plan in order to destroy his entire organization, but they also need the help of the Transporter in order to enact the entire plan. So now you have the Transporter, sometimes willingly, sometimes forced, into helping these girls out. In a way, it sounds a little like the plot of Fury Road, except it's not in a post-apocalyptic environment, and while they are prostitutes, they're not his actual wives, and Transporter's sort of thrown into this mess. Yeah, it's kind of like Fury Road, except dumber and worse. Now, when I said I enjoyed this film, do not take that the wrong way. It's not that I enjoyed it because I actually liked it. I enjoyed it because it was dumb, it was fun, and it was just plain bad at so many moments that it was just freaking hilarious. It's one of those movies that has just enough of so bad that it's good moments, that it's an enjoyable, entertaining film. So I might as well get the good things I legitimately liked about this film out of the way first. First off, I found the story very interesting and intriguing, and I really liked the storyline between the escorts, or the former prostitutes. While their plan was very convoluted, a lot of little moving parts that didn't make sense when I was watching the film, but if you look back after watching the whole thing, look back at all the moments where you found, well, why didn't they do this instead, or why didn't they do that? It all makes sense in the long run, and I kind of think that it was a pretty smart plan. In this reboot, we actually have the Transporter's father in it, and so they're talking, and they have a bunch of scenes together, and I do like their relationship. I just wish there was way better dialogue in order to enact this pretty good, interesting relationship, because there's not a lot there in the dialogue. There's really good chemistry with them, and they're really fun together, but the weird thing is their dialogue doesn't match the chemistry, and it doesn't even match the fun attitude that they have with each other. And it tries to be that. It tries to have moments where they're funny together and they're like joking with each other, but it just falls completely flat because they don't know what humor is. While I wasn't a huge fan of the acting overall, I think a lot of the actors did what they could with the characters they were given. It's nothing that was completely bad, it's nothing that was great, it's just serviceable. I think the car chases were good, and I think a lot of the fighting was competent enough to actually enjoy. There is a lot of moments where it's edited and chopped up in a way that is almost confusing to understand what exactly is going on, which plagues a lot of action movies nowadays. But I think there's some action scenes that are really handled well. One of them is when he has the car in drive and he gets out because all these people are in front of the car, and he just fights them as the car's heading towards the gate with the girl still in it. I think that scene was handled well. As stupid as it was and as weird as it was really fun in a legitimate sense and also in a bad movie sort of way. And then during these fight scenes, there are a few long cuts where you actually get to see a few punches before it finally cuts to the next punch. And during those moments, it feels really fluid and a breath of fresh air amongst the fighting sequences, but then it's over really quickly because it starts editing like crazy again. One of the bad things in this film is Jason Statham is not in it, and he is very much missed. But with that said, it does copy more of his fighting style during the Transporter series, because during the Transporter series, Jason Statham was a little bit more like Jackie Chan, where he used everything he can grab as a weapon in order to help him with the fight. Like the first Transporter movie, he dumped a barrel of grease or oil or something and then got it all over himself so that when they tried to grab him, he just like slipped out of their hands and stuff. And in this film, he uses a bunch of drawers, he grabs a bunch of battle axes from a room that happens to have battle axes, he uses like a life preserver, he uses everything he can to fight, and that feels more like the Transporter at least. Now it does get slow at sometimes, it does get boring, and most of it is when characters are just conversing, they're just sitting down conversing with each other. You get their backstory, their characterizations, but it's never to a degree that you want it, and so it just feels bland and boring, and you just feel like, okay, just get on with the action. We know you're trying to be a legitimate movie, but all these other things are so bad anyway that they're fun, so just get on to the more bad fun stuff, and then I can just say, okay, it might be a fun, bad, good movie. Now on for some of the weird, bizarre, bad, fun things in this movie. There's a lot of them, and there's enough sprinkled in that the film is completely entertaining. It starts off with this road where all these prostitutes are just waiting for customers and the pimps are there, and then this van rolls up and this guy, he's like, okay, I run this street now, you guys get out. And then next thing you know, his henchmen come out of the van and they mow down all the pimps and all the people that have guns, and then they send in their own prostitutes and like, all right, this is our turf now. And then he's like, okay, keep working, ladies. And they just leave the dead bodies on the ground as the van drives off. Even the shot indicates, it makes emphasis that there's dead bodies still lying on the ground when they leave. And the prostitutes are just supposed to keep working. I mean, if I was not that I would, but if I was a guy driving there for a little entertainment and I see a bunch of dead bodies with bullet holes in them, I'd drive the hell away. Speaking of which, all the people that are involved in that, when they're all in a scene together, not 3, maybe even 2 scenes later, I know it's 15 years later and the main bad guy doesn't have long hair anymore, but once you show a shot of him, you should know who it is, and suddenly they do a flashback of who he was during that first scene in the movie. And so I'm like, okay, maybe people are thrown off by him not having long hair anymore. I get it. But then it shows the one prostitute he takes as his own personal escort. It shows a flashback of her getting in the van. I'm like, oh, okay, I would have guessed that already. You don't need to do a flashback of that. And then next thing you know, it shows the 2 henchmen that had shot, and each one of them get a flashback of showing who they were in that first scene. And I just think, do they think we're dumb? Why? I think we could have safely assumed once we got the first guy's flashback. The rest were completely unnecessary. Also, I'm not quite sure these filmmakers know how to add. because the film starts in 1995. That's when the gang controls the whole prostitution ring. It starts off 1995. Jumps 15 years later, so that would make it 2010. Now, I'm not good with cars. I don't know the latest model of cars, but if this transporter car is the latest model of whatever brand it is, then that's the transporter got it 5 years before it was even made, I'm guessing, because this was set in 2010. Shouldn't the film be set in 2015? Shouldn't you have said 20 years later instead of 15? Oh God, and then the first car chase, it's actually well executed, but all the car crashes are so overdramatic that they're all flipping in the air. It's so ridiculously crazy that I was laughing the entire time. Plus, we got our main character trying to do an impression of Jason Statham with his voice, like he's always really low, and I know he's a British, I think he honestly has a British accent. I think he is a British guy, so he has that British accent, but he's got that low, he's trying to imitate Jason Statham's voice, and he does it the entire time, and I'm just like, okay. But I think the best scene in the entire movie, and that's because it's even more riddled with just so bad it's good moments, is the final confrontation, the final conflict. And while there is some smart things done in it, a lot of it, like I said, is ridiculously awful and funny. One of them, he uses a life preserver to like put it around a guy to keep him from fighting, and this guy speaks in a foreign language, and you get his little subtitle at the bottom, and the subtitle is the best. He puts it over, the guy's trapped, and the subtitle says, "You jerk!" "You jerk!" And then he punches him out or something. They're also caught in the middle of a battle with other people fighting each other. So there's this one part where they're trapped, there's gunfire coming from both sides because these other two people are trying to kill each other. It's like only two people left and they're both trying to kill each other, and our good guys do not have guns. And so he takes a fire extinguisher and he shoots it at cover to get them cover, and then they run past the two people. But then there's this guy with a gun. They run right past him with the fire extinguisher, and you could still clearly see they had run away. And instead of focusing on them, he's like, "No, I'm really focused in this battle. I'm right against this other guy across the room. I'm going to keep firing at him, and we're going to keep firing at each other, and we're both going to keep missing and we're not going to be in the rest of the movie." If you've seen the trailer, there's one scene you've seen where this is also a moment where he gets on a jet ski and he drives on the beach, he jumps off the jet ski, rockets through this car door window and then through the other car door window as he kicks a guy out. I think one of the funniest scenes in the entire, one of the funniest moments in the entire scene is how he gets on that jet ski. Our main girl gets kidnapped by the bad guy, and we never see how it happens. Like, one moment she's with the father, next moment we see the father trying to help another girl, and then next thing you know, the villain's got the good girl. And it's like, what happened? We missed something here. You're not going to explain how she got captured? There's this other guy on a jet ski because the villain runs off with a girl on another jet ski, and so one of the other henchmen is on a jet ski. He's got a pistol. He turns around and sees the transporter coming up, and he gets on a rail. He jumps over and he's jumping at the jet ski, but he's got the most ridiculous stance. He's like got his arms out, and he's got his he's like this in the air. And the guy just aims his gun, and he's just like this. Doesn't fire. He's aiming at the transporter for several seconds. The transporter jumps on the jet ski without the guy firing, knocks him off, and then he takes the jet ski and drives away. I just have to say, this is the only film this year that I've seen that's so bad that I've had a fun time watching it. If I were to base my score off of all seriousness it probably would be about a 1-star or maybe even a 2-star movie. It would be somewhere around that range. But as a movie so bad that it's good and fun and hilarious, I would almost give it around a 3.5-star rating. So taking all that into account, as well as the entertainment value I had watching this film, I'm honestly going to have to give The Transporter Refueled 3 stars. Yeah, I had a fun time watching it, and a lot of it was just because how plain awful it was, but there are some really boring, serious moments. It just honestly had the right balance of being actually interesting and having enough really fun, bad moments in it to actually really enjoy the film. But if you can't stand bad movies in any way, then do not see this movie because you're most likely going to absolutely hate it. So have you seen The Transporter Refueled? What did you think about it? Go ahead and comment. If not, what is your favorite hilariously bad movie? I'm talking about movies that are so bad that you really enjoy and have a good fun time with. My favorite hilariously bad movie would easily be Trolls 2. That would be like a 5-star movie for me in terms of so bad that it's good. As always, this is Bruce Gifford, and this was just my opinion.